Hello guys, welcome back. So today in hematology, I'll be taking us through hemostasis, but I'll be dividing it in various sections to make it easy to assimilate. So let's dive in. Hemostasis can be defined as all the processes involved in keeping blood within a confined area in the body, which of course is the circulatory system, and it's simply the body's way of stopping bleeding. Just imagine you have a cut and there is a profuse gush of blood from that cut, that injury site. There are different systems involved in the body, different components, different molecules. They come together to make sure that that flow of blood reduces. You notice that after a while, the gush of blood reduces, and from time to time, healing begins to set in, and all of a sudden, that wound disappears. That's the whole idea of hemostasis. So we said hemostasis is a process, and there are various systems involved in this whole process. We have the vascular system, the platelet system, the coagulation system, the fibrinolytic system, and also there are some molecules we call the inhibitors. I'll be breaking down all of these systems and molecules as the video continues, so do well to follow them up till the very last so that you grasp the whole idea of hemostasis. And it's very important to note that a disruption in the balance of these systems will cause irregular bleeding. Let's discuss the first system involved in hemostasis, which is the vascular system. This vascular system is also called the circulatory system, and it's made up of blood vessels that helps in transporting blood throughout the body. It's made up of the veins, the arteries, the capillaries. The veins help in transporting the oxygenated blood from the body back to the heart. Arteries help in transporting oxygenated blood from the heart to various parts of the body, while the capillary is more like a connective vessel between the arteries and the vein. But we'll not be talking about that. We'll just be seeing their role in hemostasis. These blood vessels have three layers. We have the intima, which is the innermost layer, and it's in direct contact with the blood that is flowing through the body. It has subendothelial cells and endothelial cells. I'll discuss more on that as we continue the video. Then we have the middle layer, which is called the media, and we have the external layer. It's almost at the surface of the skin. It's called the adventitia. It has collagen fibers and receptors, and they all have their roles, which we will discuss in the course of this video. The vascular system is more like the first line of defense in hemostasis. When there is an injury to a blood vessel, it helps in vasoconstriction. Vasoconstriction is more like a squeezing effect. Imagine holding a flexible pipe and water is passing through that pipe, but then you tighten your grip at one point of the pipe. You know that you're obstructing the flow of water. So that's exactly what happens to our blood vessels when vasoconstriction occurs. But then this line of defense is actually temporary, but then it's very effective and important because it reduces the amount of blood that will gush out at that point, and then it sets the stage for the next phase of hemostasis, which is where the platelet system comes to play. The endothelial cells found in the innermost part of the vascular system secrete inhibitors, and these inhibitors helps to keep the platelets inactive. That means at this point the blood is flowing freely because there is no injury and there is no cause for blood clotting. So blood is flowing freely and platelets are not active. So those inhibitors are, we have the nitric oxide, thrombomodulin, we have the prostacyclin, and we have the heparin sulfate. Hemostasis is broadly divided into two main parts. We have the primary and secondary hemostasis. The primary hemostasis has to do with every contribution of the blood platelets, while the secondary hemostasis has to do with every contribution of the coagulation system to hemostasis. But in the course of this video, we'll be looking at just the blood platelets. That's the primary hemostasis. In the next video, I'll be discussing the secondary hemostasis. So let's dive into the primary hemostasis, which is the blood platelets. Our blood platelets are part of our blood cells that are derived from the megakaryocytes, and subsequently they are destroyed in the spleen. They help in blood clotting in order to stop bleeding, and they are made up of two major parts, which are the alpha granules and the dense bodies. The alpha granules are tiny components of the blood platelet that contains proteins needed for the process of hemostasis. And examples of the alpha granules are, we have the platelet-derived growth factor, that's PDGF, and it's responsible for healing of an injury. You notice that after a while your injury is now healed. The platelet-derived growth factor is responsible for that. We also have the platelet factor 4, and that one helps the platelets to stick to each other. Then we have thrombospondin. Thrombospondin gives room for platelet to platelet interaction with each other. Then we also have von Willebrand factor. Von Willebrand factor helps in platelet adhesion. We'll be discussing platelet adhesion shortly. Then the other part of the blood platelet is the dense bodies, and the dense bodies is made up of, we have ADP. ADP helps in platelet aggregation. We'll also discuss that shortly. Then we have ATP. ATP is a source of ADP. Then we have serotonin. Serotonin is a neurotransmitter that helps in vasoconstriction. Remember when we talked about the vascular system, we mentioned vasoconstriction, which is like a squeezing effect of the blood vessels. All of that process is propelled by serotonin, which is found in the blood platelets in the dense body. So at the site of injury, the inhibitors are no longer active, therefore the platelets are now active, they now move freely. So remember we said von Willebrand factors are produced by the endothelial cells, and this von Willebrand factor is responsible for platelet adhesion. So what happens now is that those active platelets begin to move to the site of injury, and they begin to bind to von Willebrand factor on the endothelial cells and begin to settle down there. So glycoprotein 1b helps to fuse each platelet together. It helps to give them this fine finishing and helps them to settle down there. So the whole process of platelets moving to the site of injury and binding to von Willebrand factor in the presence of glycoprotein 1b is called platelet adhesion. So after the adhesion of this platelet, the shape of the platelets changes from a round shape to a spherical shape because there is now a contraction of the microfilament of the platelet. And when this contraction is taking place, there is a secretion of some chemicals such as the ADP, serotonin, and thromboxane A2. So what thromboxane A2 and ADP does is that they move away from the endothelial cell into the bloodstream and begin to activate more platelets and begin to attract them. So they begin to attract more platelets to the site of injury and cause them to pile up. So at this point now, more platelets are piling up at the site of injury, and as they are piling up, glycoprotein 2b3a helps to link them together. Same way glycoprotein 1b helped in the other phase. At this point now is glycoprotein 2b3a. It helps to link them together so that they can be closely packed to each other. So this whole process of platelets piling up at the site of injury is called platelet aggregation. So on the other hand, thromboxane A2 and serotonin will bind to the receptors of smooth muscles and begin to cause vasoconstriction. So let's quickly have a recap of what we discussed in primary hemostasis. We said primary hemostasis has 3 stages, which is the platelet adhesion, platelet activation, and platelet aggregation. In platelet adhesion, we said the platelets begin to move to the site of injury and bind to von Willebrand factor in the presence of glycoprotein 1b, then which causes the change in shape of the platelets from round to a spherical shape, and then it leads to the secretion of some chemicals like ADP, thromboxane A2, and serotonin. And then thromboxane A2, serotonin, and ADP then result to the platelet aggregation. So guys, that's that for the vascular system and primary hemostasis. In the next video, we'll be discussing the secondary hemostasis. If you have any question, do well to ask in the comment section. Do well to like, share, subscribe. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell and stay curious and keep learning till I come your way next time. Thank you.